we can begin with a short invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Surabhyay Namaha.
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 Mukam karoti vacharam pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. So welcome to our third and last session on the topic of Dharma Sastri. We have covered in the first session the subject matter of Dharma meant to be understood in two main features or two levels that we refer to, or that Shastra actually refers to as spiritual Swadharma. The science of the, also known as Atmagyan, isn't it? Knowledge of the soul, the science of the soul, which is the science of bhakti, devotional service. And then the other level of material Swadharma, since we are here in the material world, we have this material body, and we need to understand how to properly utilize this material body in relation to the material energy. So that is a whole other science in itself, which deals more with material subject matters. But material subject matters, this is an important point that maybe I didn't underline sufficiently. There's so much of material knowledge in different colleges and universities and libraries, etc. And most of that knowledge is actually disconnected with the understanding and the principles of Dharma. And therefore, what is especially the emphasis nowadays in the context of education is what they call STEM education. What is STEM education? S-T-E-M. Science, technology. I always get... what is it? English. Engineering, yeah. Correct, yeah. And mathematics. So a few years back, they started to realize, the educators, that there's too much of emphasis on, science and technology, and therefore we should add some arts. So they added A, and then from STEM we have STEAM. Yeah. But whatever it is we have in modern day education, when it is disconnected, as it is, with the primary purpose and goal of life, that education is misleading, isn't it? So therefore, very, very important for us as practicing devotees to know that, practically speaking, all the material knowledge and all the material sciences that we need to know is there actually in the Shastra. Vedic literatures are divided, as you know, in Shruti and Smriti. Shruti is focusing on the spiritual dimension of Vedic knowledge, whereas Smriti is dealing more with various material sciences. Dharma Shastras, for example, teach us all kinds of material knowledge, but the difference is that when we receive it from Shastra, number one, although it is material knowledge, it is written by sadhus. Just like we were quoting about Vriksha Yurveda. Who knows Vriksha Yurveda? Hare Krishna. Not too many hands up. Vriksha Yurveda is the science of plants, plants and herbs. So we have all kinds of such literatures which are actually essential. Well, nowadays we don't even know about them because they're not part of our lives. Because our lives has gone towards AI too much. I mean, we should never even go in that direction. We're already living a very artificial life, and we want to increase more by, relying and depending more and more on this so-called artificial intelligence, which initially seems very attractive and gives all kinds of interesting and fascinating results, but ultimately it will kill us, because it is anything that is artificial is temporary and is not real. I mean, the very word artificial should tell us that this is not for us, isn't it? So within the context of modernity, and which is based on technology and industrialization, because our primary focus, those who are leaders in various fields of knowledge, whether they be scientists, whether they are intellectuals, scholars, or leaders of different countries, they're lacking, isn't it? They're lacking the basics of the principles of Dharma. And therefore, even though they are accumulating so much of material knowledge, Prabhupada actually explains how the more we accumulate and become involved in all kinds of material so-called development, we become more and more, in so many ways, disqualified to even appreciate or understand the spiritual dimension of life. And we also not only cannot appreciate the spiritual dimension, but we cannot properly understand things that are on the material level as well, isn't it? So in other words, for us as practicing devotees, and it's an area that we are somewhat weak on, we need to shift our focus and spend more time, more research in utilizing and understanding the different Vedic literatures that are there. Prabhupada, although instructed that we concentrate on 4 basic books of knowledge, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, he also encouraged that we read other books that are along the same lines. And also in the context of Varnashram, Prabhupada expected that we study books that will help us understand and manifest actually the whole lifestyle that we find within the system of Varna and Ashrama. And that has to do, as we demonstrated a little bit yesterday, in studying. It's very important to become familiar with these four Vedic sciences, Chatur Vidya, that we spoke about. Basically, our whole focus was on that yesterday. So our concluding session today is dealing with, okay, now that we know a little bit about these two aspects of Dharma, now that we know also about the historical perspective that Prabhupada actually formulated in his essay Gita Nagari, the four movements. Important for us to understand that there are these four phases, and that the fourth one is actually missing, Varnashrama development, which again, to remind us, is 50% of Srila Prabhupada's unfulfilled mission, Prabhupada's own statement, right? Which remains to this day very much pretty well the same, isn't it? And one of the key factors we also mentioned, and we need to continue reminding ourselves, is that without establishing systematic educational systems, primarily two, one of them being Gurukul and the other one being Varnashram colleges, we will not get out of our present impasse. So the solution actually to our present day problems in the world, at all levels, basically, lies in what Prabhupada has instructed, that we study more closely, more systematically our Vedic literatures, and very important, which is again something which, of course, we will touch on this in a few minutes. The absolute necessity, if we actually want to succeed in reviving Vedic culture, when we begin to understand that Vedic culture is primarily an agrarian-based culture, a rural-based culture, a cow-based culture, then reviving Vedic culture means reviving our villages, giving the proper knowledge, the proper guidance, proper support in so many different ways. So let's get into our main discussion this morning. Let's see here. Yeah, that yes, we will look at practical application for ISKCON in general, then for city temples, then for rural projects, and then for individuals, and then for general society. These are the areas. Okay, so a few points towards sustainability. By nature and by definition, villages are meant to be self-governed and self-sufficient. Yeah. And this will be the last time I'll be bringing up books of reference. At the end of the presentation, I'll just leave it up on the screen so that you can either take a picture, and some websites that you can also visit to get more information. So for ISKCON in general, there are actually a few, not many, there are a few GBC resolutions regarding the importance and need of supporting rural communities. They go back maybe 15 years ago. Enough time for all of us to have forgotten. In Kali Yuga, it doesn't take 15 years to forget. Does anyone know what resolutions were passed by the GBC? Yes.
The city temples should contribute 10% of their funds to these rural communities. Something like that.
The temple should contribute 10% of what?
Of their overall funds to these developments.
That would be so nice, but it's not. It's not the resolution. The resolution. Anyone else have?
I've heard that every temple should have their own produce from the cows and the farms.
Yes. So specifically, the resolutions is that whenever someone is giving Bhagavatam class, which happens every day, it's supposed to happen every day, the speaker, the person giving Bhagavatam class, should spend 10% of his time on Varnashram subject, Varnashram related subjects, just to bring the theme to the forefront. Number one, that was one of the resolutions. Secondly, city temples are encouraged to purchase produce, vegetables, grains, whatever, as well as milk and milk products from our farm communities. What was an instruction given by Srila Prabhupada many years back, and is not a resolution, at least to this day. It's not a GBC resolution, but Prabhupada had instructed, yes, that every single temple, every city temple should have a community, a farm community within a 50-kilometer radius, so that produce can come to the city, and at least we can begin to offer natural food, organic food, devotee-grown food to the Lord, and also ahimsa milk. There was a resolution more recently, I think that's probably the latest one, regarding ahimsa milk, whereby I believe when the resolution was passed, it gave about 2 or 3 years for our city temples to make that adjustment so that they offer only ahimsa milk to the deities. Ahimsa milk meaning milk from protected cows, ideally from cows cared for by devotees. And I think the deadline was 2021 or 22. COVID came along and the rest is history, as they say. I don't think that has been implemented as such. Another part of the resolution was that as senior members of the society, leaders, GBC in particular, and other leaders, that they, as often as possible, visit farm communities to at least know what is taking place, and also to show by example that we are thinking about the farm communities. One of the major points which we generally, and it's understandable, we don't think about very much, if at all, is that beginning with our own devotee families, we need to encourage and we need to make various arrangements so that more families can actually relocate in villages. Now there's 2 ways of doing that. Either we go to existing villages, there's so many, over 600,000 villages are still there. That's one great fortune for a country like India, because in America, you have less than 5% of the people living in the country. Less than 5% of the people. That means 95% of the people are stuck up in the cities, in high-rise apartments, mostly, and whatnot. So, either one establishes some good relationship with existing villages. Of course, in a place like Bengal, for example, where they have since many years, over 40 years now, the Namhata program, where they have established so many contacts with villages. So it's much easier to kind of become part of such a village. The other option is that when a group of devotees come together, purchase some land, something that we did, for example, in Indonesia, something that Sivaram Maharaj in Hungary also, and other places, both in India and outside of India. Okay, so let's just continue here a little bit. We should have in mind to establish, on the long run, traditional gurukulas. We have many versions of gurukulas, but we should know that there is the original version of Vedic Gurukula, which has very unique characteristics, one of them being boarding. Gurukula actually means boarding school, where both the teachers and the students live together. And and the medium for such traditional gurukulas are generally Sanskrit. And the curriculum is entirely based actually on Vedic literatures. Yeah. So we should know that, in order to re-establish Vedic culture, gurukulas, establishing traditional gurukulas, is absolutely essential. As I mentioned, also establishing Varnashram colleges. In many ways, establishing colleges is recommended even before establishing gurukulas, because those who will be part of Varnashram college can then become qualified teachers within Gurukula system. Create Varnashram research teams, something we started many years ago when IDVM, ISKCON Daiva Varnashram Ministry, was created way back in 2009. That's like 15 years back, 16 now. And this is like ongoing, but a lot more could be done. More groups of devotees anywhere around the world actually can and should come together, based especially on this book that we are emphasizing a lot, speaking about Varnashrama, and all kinds of activities. Very often from such groups there will be a realization that, okay, maybe our group can do what is necessary to start establishing a community also. Anyway, that will vary from one group to another. In different countries, to establish national Varnashram committees. Of course, as I mentioned, we already have in India at least a ministry. But and it's the only country I know that has. Yes, well, eventually within our ISKCON society, we need to establish continental global Varnashram ministry. That's one of the drawbacks or limitations I would say that we have, because the whole ideology of Varnashram is not so easy to address, not so easy to understand, not so easy to know, okay, well, what do we do? And there's a lot of controversy, and therefore, for these and other reasons, we, to this day, within our ISKCON society, we don't have a global ministry. We have global ministries for book distribution, for life membership, for deity worship, education, etc. But for 50% of Prabhupada's mission, we don't have a global ministry. So that's responsibility of actually every devotee, maybe to try and highlight to those who are within their community or leaders in the community as well. Mm. Okay. So this is, whoops, yeah. Brahminical activities. Okay, this is just giving a little bit of a list of some things that we have, especially in terms of Brahminical education and Brahminical activities. Okay. Anyways, we have a few educational institutions that are listed here, but mostly it's connected with Brahminical kind of knowledge and doesn't go beyond. I think that's the last one, yeah. It's called Leads. These are all different, over the years, initiatives that, and definitely I recommend devotees, whenever opportunity is there, to take up courses that are provided. Yes. Okay. Kshatriya, these are a few things. Actually, I put this together some time back, so it's partial and it's not, yeah. Oops, sorry. Here and there, not in so many places, there are devotees who have taken various initiatives to promote the Kshatriya aspect. You will recall I was mentioning how Prabhupada is advising that we need to develop curriculum for establishing Brahminical culture, Kshatriya culture, Vaishya culture. These are a few things that are taking place. Vaishya activities, of course, is any of our different projects, like we have in Australia, New Govardhan, I mean we have here in India as well. Means basically farm communities, and this is again very, very partial. And most of these farm communities don't have a Varnashram college, so therefore, well, it varies a lot actually. But main point being that there are some activities, and especially those who amongst our householders who are seriously thinking of establishing communities, these are some of the projects that one can get in contact with. If one can visit some of them, well, one can learn so many different things. Yes. Yes. Okay. Now, what to do for those who are in our cities, connected with our city temples, which is actually the vast majority of our devotees. Well, one doesn't need a separate building. Whatever is there now in any of our temples, all one needs is a room. Even you don't need a room. You just need some space to start teaching things that are connected with the whole Varnashram ideology. We were discussing yesterday how actually there are already a number of devotees who are either knowledgeable in Sanskrit, or some devotees know about astrology, some know Sanskrit, about astrology, about Ayurveda. So we just need some devotees to at least give some introductory courses, and depending on how much knowledge an individual has and how much of interest is there on the part of students, then he can go beyond simply giving introductory courses. Whole idea being that we need to understand the importance of gradually and systematically introducing our Vedic sciences. Because our Vedic sciences are unchanging sciences. And we have standard books of knowledge. Again, whether it's astrology, whether it's Ayurveda, etc. And so there's a need to do that by, which means automatically, even on a small scale, it means the beginning of establishing Varnashram colleges, right? Homeschooling and Sunday school for children in some temples, this is taking place, or in some of our communities. It will vary from one country to another. For example, in France, it is illegal to homeschool your children. In some countries, you cannot homeschool. In India, it is allowed. Probably in more countries than not, homeschooling is allowed. And we've had a number of parents within our ISKCON society who have followed this process. And definitely there are many advantages in doing that. The more we understand how even non-devotees, like in America, because public school system is far from being the ideal, to put it mildly. So even ordinary people prefer taking their children out of the present day the school system and opt for homeschooling. That we mentioned already, start Varnashram research teams. In cities, we can develop community gardens. It's very popular in the last decade or so in America, and I'm sure other countries as well. How to get back, in contact with nature. How to, so on a small scale, regardless of where one is living, even somebody is living in a high-rise apartment, there's at least a 6 feet by 2 feet balcony there. Not so much, but at least some little space is there. Papa called it pigeonhole, pigeon house. Yeah, living in high-rise apartments is like that. But if you're fortunate to have your balcony where some amount of sun comes, then you can grow a few flower plants or a few tomato plants, whatever. Ideas that somehow start and understand the need and the importance of doing that. There's a lot of literature, I'm sure many of you are aware, on the internet regarding doing such simple things. Yes, purchase from ISKCON rural projects, that was one of the resolutions we were discussing a few minutes ago. Even if it's not a project, sometimes devotees, they will be, like in Indonesia, we have a number of devotees who do catering, prasadam distribution, catering by selling. So it's a means of income for householders, and it's also whoever receives that food, which is not food, it's actually offered, so therefore prasadam. So we should encourage devotees who are doing this and purchase from them. Of course, most important, every single temple, this we've heard many times, should have a plan to actually acquire land if they already don't have, with the idea of actually establishing at least one community should be there connected with a temple, because in every temple we have deities, and deities should be served with what is uh, the purest. Yeah. Mm. Something that all of us can start doing, and we're not doing sufficiently, is to avoid all kinds of harmful consumer-produced foods, and that probably, it also should include all kinds of commercial products, whether it is commercial soaps, commercial incense. It's amazing. I think most of our, maybe less in India, I don't know, I've not done a survey, but there's a tendency of just buying things that are commercial, which is actually very detrimental to the health in many ways, and which is actually encouraging this unhealthy practice, and encouraging those industries. Clothing, that's a whole other topic in itself. We should be purchasing cloth. Of course, I don't think many devotees make cloth. Within the ministry we have here in India, there's actually one department since the last 3 or 4 years reviving natural textile. So we have in, where is it? Yeah, Belgaum, and under the supervision of His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj, they're making natural cloth. I think what I'm wearing now, most of what we wear is synthetic. It is impure. It is actually not good for the health. We don't realize it, but the more we surround ourselves with and utilize all kinds of products which are not natural, then this has a bearing on on our health, and both physical health as well as mental health. Yeah. So these are some that we could add to this list, a lot more. But you see, city temples means it's made up of devotees, either those who are full-time in the temple or the congregation. So if our devotees, either living in the temple or in the congregation, become more aware, then policies can be introduced that, isn't it, we use more sattvic items. What advice for rural projects? Golden rule to follow. This we find actually in the, what is it? Gita Nagari, essay of Prabhupada. Prabhupada mentions, if you're going to make a community, first thing you should do is establish a temple. We were discussing this yesterday regarding, First is establish a temple where everyone can congregate and be focused on the same objective, serving Krishna. Second priority should be developing educational facilities. In particular, Gurukula, isn't it? So education is a top priority. We briefly made reference to first is food statement that Prabhupada very often reminded us of, and first is character. This we've already covered the other day. Produce only what you need and use only what you produce. there are many different aspects. If devotees, I would say, unless devotees come together and focus on this whole dimension of our movement, then it will be very slow. But as soon as devotees do this on a regular basis, then devotees will become inspired and things will just more spontaneously. For individuals, all of us, we have a responsibility to deepen our understanding of the dual meaning of Dharma, which is lacking today within our society. We should also strive to have a strong sadhana, because actually what we are trying to do as a society and as individuals is practically impossible. I mean, we're trying to change the whole course of history. Modern society is going in one direction and we are pointing to a completely different direction. So unless we are strong as devotees, because there will be all kinds of, not will be, there are, and will continue to be all kinds of obstacles and challenges. So that's important. Prabhupada reminded us, and it's there in the Bhagavatam also, learning to be satisfied with the minimum as opposed to the maximum. Yeah, reducing our basic necessities and really strive to live in that way. Develop the inquisitive mentality of the student, and appreciate the Vedic aphorism that education is life and life is education, which is a very nice concept actually in the Vedic culture. And especially those who are planning to relocate in a rural setting or to start different activities, then yes, we should work towards upgrading our different abilities or skills. Actually, mostly in the Vedic culture, mostly people work with their hands. I mean, the Brahmanas work especially with their brain. And even now in modern day society, most people work with their, manually, manual skills. The difference within the context of Vedic culture is that those skills, they should be in connection with natural agriculture and cow care. Okay. For general society, important to interact actually with people who have similar kind of understanding. I was mentioning one particular organization our devotees came in contact with, what is called Global Eco Network. Anyone familiar with this group? GEN. They've been around for the last 50 years, actually. And they promote eco villages, establishing eco villages, eco lifestyle. And they hold national or continental conferences, I believe every year or every second year. In other words, there are different groups of people out there who understand that the whole setup of modern day living is not good, to say the least. And they are introducing, or they are educating themselves to live a more natural and simple lifestyle. We can learn some things from them, actually. For example, who knows about permaculture? Hey. Permaculture. What is the meaning of permaculture? are too stuck up in the cities here. Permaculture means permanent agriculture. Permanent agriculture, permaculture. Look it up, Google. There's many very important documents, films. This was started quite some years back, but it's very much in line with our Vedic understanding. We've had experts in permaculture come to our community in Western Canada, in Sharanagati, and give workshops. It was very helpful. Here in India, especially in the last decade or last 2 decades, there's a whole revival in natural farming, isn't it? People like Vandana Shiva. Anyone know Vandana Shiva? At least one person, huh? Come on, you're from India, no? Vandana Shiva is a very vocal personality. She's from Dehradun. She has her own ashram, and she's a scientist, she's an author, she's an activist, and she's been fighting against Monsanto, for example, for many years. She's trying to reintroduce what is meant to be the natural biodiversity in agriculture. She's written many books. One of them is entitled, what is it? Soil, Not Oil. Soil, Not Oil, something like that. So we have a number of personalities here in India who are in the forefront of reviving natural agriculture. And of course, cow protection, that's a whole other aspect which is essential as well. So in other words, those who are in India have many opportunities to learn. We have one center near Hyderabad called Kamyavan, where they've been developing a community there for the last 3-4 years. Sri Ram Prabhu is overseeing that project, and he regularly invites people who have knowledge in different fields connected with natural farming, and people who have won some award, for example, who are innovative in introducing more simple natural farming techniques, etc. And many people come for these workshops. Ideal place, of course, because he's in the country. So there are a good number of experts in India, but not only in India, around the world as well, because more and more people are awakening to the reality that, we are, the way we're living, the way we are utilizing and wasting, unfortunately, destroying ultimately our natural resources. It is estimated that over 33%, 1/3 of the natural resources on this planet, 1/3 of the natural resources in the last 20 to 30 years have been exhausted. We have used up 33% of the natural resources on the planet in just the last 30 years. So what's going to happen if we continue this way? It's like we're shooting ourselves in the leg, We're committing suicide because we depend on nature. We depend on the natural resources of nature. But because of not knowing what is the goal of life, we are just totally on the body platform, and we want to consume more and more. We want to produce more and more. It's like Maya galore. Meantime, every country in the world is like in debt over their heads, and America is always proud of being number one, they are also number one in terms of being in debt over their head. So we're living completely against the principles of Dharma, and therefore that's, we need to be aware as devotees, we need to know what's going on in the world, which is not in keeping with Dharma, because that's also part of our responsibility. Our responsibility is not only to tell people to chant Hare Krishna and be happy. I'm not wanting to minimize this activity. That is the basis of all of our activities, to chant the holy name. That's a Yuga Dharma. Simultaneously, we need to be aware of what's happening on this planet. How people are misusing, mishandling Krishna's energy. And how people are being abused and exploited, beginning with, all of those living entities in the first canto of the Bhagavatam who are identified as needing special protection. They're the ones that are most abused in modern day society. Women, children. I was visiting Sweden a few years back. They have a farm community some distance from the capital, and the devotees were telling me that we have a major problem. Sweden, as a country, which is meant to be one of the more liberal countries in terms of educational practices, etc. And the devotee was telling that our major problem in our country, which has become so acute, our major problem is problem of loneliness. And to address this problem, the Swedish government was the first government in the world to establish a ministry for loneliness. And a minister who's in charge of loneliness. I came to know other countries have also followed suit. I mean, that's how bad the situation is. Not only loneliness amongst elderly people, because very often people, when they retire, they don't really know what to do. And then, the way we live nowadays, everyone is busy. We don't have time to look after people who require a lot of time. So it's like parents nowadays, I mean, you see this in America. I used to visit one elderly Indian lady. She was my disciple. And, she had been placed, they have these old age homes where it's full of elderly people, and because most people in the Western countries have been disconnected with the Vedic culture, have never even known about the Vedic culture. So people engage in all kinds of sinful activities their whole life, intoxication, etc. So you see people, who are, what's the word? People who reverse to being children. Actually, there's a word that doesn't come to mind right now. It's a very sad situation, actually, because people cannot even recognize their relatives, and nobody go. Maybe once a month, people will go and see them. So, because we are forgetting about or have never even known about the Vedic more way of life, extended families where everyone is meant to support one another, etc. Therefore, we have the kind of situation where so seeing this whole deteriorated situation in society, Prabhupada was emphasizing, therefore, because of the whole chaotic condition in society, therefore it is necessary for us to reintroduce what is more simple and what is more systematic, so that everyone can be cared for at all levels. Yeah. So yeah. So we can learn different things from organizations that are already doing different things. Let's see. Promoting eco-village development, yoga retreats. Some of our centers, some of our projects are doing that. Introducing Vedic concepts of governance in existing leaders. Existing leaders means there are already, people who are politicians, leaders at different levels. So Prabhupada wanted that such persons be introduced, for example, to the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where these Vedic sciences are mentioned. Yeah. Preparing devotees to become social leaders, preparing devotees to take government leadership positions as well. Prabhupada, many devotees may not know, but in the early days, Prabhupada had actually sanctioned a political party in America that was named In God We Trust. It was, I think, for about 1.5 years or 2 years, devotees wearing, pant and suit were running for office. So there's two ways to change the leadership. Either existing leadership needs to be introduced to the Vedic knowledge, and I think they both need to go hand in hand. Some of our own devotees take up the position of leadership by receiving the proper training, which is meant to be given, again, in the Varnashram College. Organizing conferences on self-sufficiency and sustainability is also important. Doing all kinds of things that will bring us closer towards actually reviving and putting into place an agrarian lifestyle. Although we mention it many times, but to me this is so fundamental that there's absolutely no way that we can re-establish Vedic culture unless we are present, unless Krishna consciousness is present in villages. Because it's only in the villages that the fullness of what Vedic culture is all about can actually be experienced, isn't it? 6 action plans. This was actually put together by one devotee from America who was for many years part of the New Vrindavan community. The first one, get growing. Start a temple garden. The size is irrelevant. Although the bigger the garden, the more facility to engage others. So whether it's growing food or growing flowers, somehow connect with. Upgrade the offering. Improve Brahminical standards by purchasing food that is more natural, isn't it? And especially that is grown by our own devotees, right? These are 2 out of 6 very practical things that we can start to do. every single city temple. Number 3, ahimsa support groups. We should gradually be doing away with anything which is not natural and organic. More and more of our devotees here in India are producing different products. We should gradually introduce those in our daily practices. 4, look for opportunities to interact. Same point we were making. There are either individuals or groups or organizations who are doing things which are in line with what we are also endeavoring or attempting to do. And then congregational purchasing power. This is especially in America, where we have large groups of Indian families who are connected with our temples. So they can come together and help in that respect. Also advertise ISKCON's farm activities or ventures. We should at least know where we have farm communities, and we should try to visit whenever possible and provide or offer, according to our respective means, whatever support we can. Yes, this was put together by one devotee who had started a small farm training in New Vrindavan some years back. I'm not sure if it's there still. So I mentioned earlier about different books of reference. I'll just put them up here. Srimad Bhagavatam, very important. Every single householder should be familiar with the content of these 5 chapters, chapter 11 to 15, canto number 7, which is Narada Muni's, you could say, dissertation on Varnashrama Dharma. Then Gita Nagari essay, which is available in the database I was mentioning the day before yesterday. Number 3, The Light of the Bhagavat, small book, but many important instructions given by Srila Prabhupada. Speaking about Varnashrama, we mentioned that already a number of times, this book here. By the way, this is available in digital form as of quite recently. You can leave your contact if you'd like a copy, or we'll let you know where to get. Make Vrindavan Villages. Yesterday we sold 37 copies here. Yeah. Make Vrindavan Villages. It summarizes a little bit the story of devotees in Indonesia and talks about these 4 movements that we discussed the other day. Modernity is killing civilization. And then Vedic Vaishnava view of sociology. Vedic sociology is very important for us to understand how society is meant to be organized. And basically, Vedic sociology means Varnashrama Dharma, society that is organized on these principles of Varna and Ashrama. So these are some references. There are others as well. And then these are some websites that have a good amount of information on Varnashram related topics. Yes. Vedic Eco Village, we have initiative in Western Canada, Sastri campaign. Very good reference, International Society for Cow Protection, the former minister for the Global Ministry of Cow Protection, Balabhadra Prabhu, who is retired now. But since many, many years, he has a very informative website. He's expert in terms of agriculture and cow care. He used to be in New Vrindavan. He has relocated in Florida many years ago, I believe close to Gainesville. And he updates very regularly his website. All kinds of very helpful information is there. Yeah. The Varnashram College Online, a few years back, a group of devotees started giving courses online. You can visit that website also. So we will take the rest of the time, or whatever time, between now and, well, just leave it like that, for any possible questions or comments on, I suppose, any of the topics we have been addressing in the last few days.
What is the last website functional? The last one?
What is the last?
Varnashram, the last wave.com, is it functional? I was trying to check some days before, but I couldn't find it. Varnashram, the last wave.
Oh, I see, okay, yeah. Actually, this is quite recent, so it may, I have to find out from our, he's not here right now. No, actually, you should be able to, you mean you couldn't log on or log in?
They said it's under progress or something. I don't remember.
Okay, no, it's maybe a few months back, but it should be up and running. Any questions, comments?
It is online.
It's working?
Only thing is, I think you have added A after M. That is not there.
Yeah.
I did the same. First I added A. It was not.
Yeah, I mean one letter.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Maharaj, I had a question. Like, I think because of the paper currency, there has been a lot of industrialization. So in the previous Vedic culture, there was no paper currency. It was barter system. So is it possible that system? Is it possible to revive it again, or what are your thoughts?
Yes, but we have to get rid of our paper currency. Means when the paper currency, which is an artificial system in place, when that will not be in place, then in other words, when we start, as instructed in by Srila Prabhupada in the Shastra, when we start living this more natural, normal lifestyle, then automatically this kind of natural barter system will be revived. And I remember quite some years back visiting, looking for land actually in one of the provinces in eastern Canada, and meeting the owner of a piece of land that was attractive. He took us to see the land, and he was relating how even in a place like Canada, when he was younger and living, as one of the children in the family, they didn't have any money. They didn't need any money, basically, because they didn't have to buy anything. They were producing all the food they needed. They were making their own cloth as well. And that is the formula. The closer we come to what is described in the Shastra, it's like, the residents of Vrindavan, they don't go shopping on the weekend to Mathura. They never go to Mathura, right? I mean, it's Nanda Maharaj, he goes once a year to pay taxes. That's what we read about. Otherwise, they have no interest, even though you can walk there. It's walking, in those days, 12 or 14 kilometers is nothing. Those who do pariyatra, they do double. So, many of the things that we read about, many of what we hear when we have such kind of seminars, it will only begin to sink in. It will only begin to make sense when we go to the land, when we buy a pot of earth and put some seeds in it. Oh, something happens, right? Unless and until we reconnect with Mother Nature in different ways, unless and until we connect with Mother Cow also, then we will just it will just be theory. And therefore we won't get the desired result. So to actually more clearly understand and realize the topics that are being presented by Srila Prabhupada, the topics that are described in our Vedic literatures, we have to associate, we have to be there, we have to interact. And then slowly, gradually, it will be slow somewhat because we have and we continue to be heavily conditioned, isn't it? Some of us, since we're born in cities, in towns and cities, so we are probably unaware of how heavily conditioned we are. So all of these aspects of the Vedic culture, which are much less known to the vast majority of us, we can begin to realize, to understand by spending time, by associating, by by reconnecting, basically. Same thing, isn't it, with Krishna? We're disconnected with Krishna since so many lifetimes, but by applying the process, by associating in different ways, slowly, gradually, our interest in Krishna consciousness becomes gradually awakened. So similar will happen. So we can begin anywhere, anytime, even on a small scale. And again, coming together for devotees to discuss, and then to, on whatever scale it is possible, to begin implementing them, we will benefit and will be able to also please Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada very clearly understood, if we don't take this up, then we are in many ways, delaying this mission of reestablishing Vedic culture to actually take place. Yeah. Yes.
We see in this modern history, in this modern era,
Uh-huh.
we see simple and minimalistic lifestyle people like Bangladesh terrorized by the Islamic terrorists. The devotees have been terrorized by the Islamic terrorists. Then even the Buddhist country Tibet was devoured by China. So how do we balance this?
What happens to different groups or to different countries, that's beyond our understanding. That's in Krishna's hands. Are you asking why these things are happening?
In Kali Yuga, they are going to be there.
No, this is wrong understanding. In this Kali Yuga, it's very important for us to understand, in this Kali Yuga, since the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we who have that great fortune of being connected with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have the opportunity to bring back, for a short period of time, of 10,000 years, a golden era. So we cannot just say, well, this is Kali Yuga and everything is going to deteriorate anyways, so why make the effort? We are in Kali Yuga, but we are in a very special Kali Yuga. The Shastra is telling us that there is a Satya Yuga in the making, and we should try to understand we have been given this great fortune of being part of that. For this Satya Yuga to actually become manifest, it means Vedic culture has to be revived. For Vedic culture to be revived, it means we have to rebuild our villages. To rebuild our villages, it means devotees have to stay in villages, have to learn how to produce food in a more simple, natural way, have to take up what is meant to be the means, Vedic economy, as we discussed. In other words, for Vedic culture to be revived, we need to know the Vedic sciences that sustain and make up Vedic culture. So we can say, well, we're Kali Yuga species and by nature we are lazy and less intelligent. We are lazy and we are less intelligent, but we're not hopeless cases. If we're hopeless cases, then let's just close the books, let's stop having seminars, and let's just, whatever. We are given this opportunity, this knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada has elaborated and given us directions how to revive this Vedic culture. He's given us the means by which we can do this. And meantime, of course, Kali Yuga continues in a very inconceivable way. We it's like a film that we've never seen before. We don't know what the end is. Our film is that we don't know when the end will come also. But we have some understanding that based on what our acharyas are telling, what Shastra is telling, even though now looking at the present situation, the world, affairs of the world, it looks very gloomy. It's very pessimistic in so many ways. But those who have this knowledge, those who believe in the words of our acharyas, they are the fortunate ones, and by simply putting into practice what has been taught to us, then even now we may not realize it because we're all, very individual, tiny persons who have, what can we see? What can we understand in terms of what is going on the planet regarding positive changes that are taking place to help reestablish this Vedic culture. Every single day, there are so many, practically speaking, miracles taking place. There's so many people coming in contact with this knowledge, so many people who are finally coming to know that if I follow these instructions, then I can put an end to my miserable condition. More and more of our children who are born in devotee families are showing very positive signs. We had one of our Gurukul boys just a few months ago who actually established a world record by reciting the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita and in less than 1 minute. 55, not less than 1 minute, less than 1 hour, in 55 minutes. In 55 minutes, he recited the entire by heart, right? We have young Gurukul boys who are able to give Bhagavatam classes much better than many of our other devotees. Yeah. If we have a little sense of observation, we can begin to see different signs that the movement and the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prabhupada's movement is taking shape. Inconceivably, simultaneously, the world is becoming more and more mad. People are becoming more and more frustrated. Only Krishna knows what the final act will be. We don't. But we should know that everything is in Krishna's hands. And as Krishna is teaching in the Bhagavad Gita, we should not be so concerned about the results. We should not be so attached. We should actually not at all be attached with the results. Our success is not in the results. Our success as devotees is in the endeavor to simply put into practice what is given to us by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, isn't it? That is our success. Because we have no idea whatsoever, Krishna's responsibility is to balance, the demoniac and divine elements that are taking place on the planet. And of course, he wants to reestablish Dharma. One of the purposes of the Lord's Dharma samstapanarthaya. How this will happen, when it will happen, well, the more we hear what our founder Acharya has told us, I mentioned a few things, more are mentioned in this book. Prabhupada said modern civilization is a doomed civilization. Modern day civilization is a killing civilization. Modern day civilization will soon come to an end. We should meditate on that. We should try to understand what that means. And we should try to understand what is actually meant to be and what was and what can again become the Vedic standard, Vedic way of life, isn't it? We're seeing glimpses of that in some of the efforts from different devotees, from different groups of devotees, from different communities. Okay, it's on a small scale. We don't have such a large number of devotees, even worldwide. We're very small. But we should keep in mind, just like, Battle of Kurukshetra, the Pandavas were outnumbered. But actually they were not, because Krishna was on their side. So we are on Krishna's side. Krishna's on our side. And therefore, as Sanjaya mentions at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, wherever there is Arjuna and Krishna, then there will be victory, morality, and great wealth. So we should have that understanding, that conviction, that faith, and just pursue, try to put into practice the various instructions given by Srila Prabhupada, who told us that these books, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, they will be the guiding light for the next 10,000 years. If we have that conviction, that understanding, then we should more and more endeavor to implement the various instructions given by Srila Prabhupada, not worrying so much about what may happen, what may not happen. That's not in our hands. We have no capacity, no ability whatsoever to understand the workings of what is taking place. Law of karma is very intricate, especially in Kali Yuga, where everything is very mixed, unpredictable, etc. So we'd like to thank all the devotees who have attended our seminar. As I mentioned, we have a ministry in India. The office of that ministry is actually in Srila Mayapur. Devotees who want more books or more information, they can contact our devotees there. And yes, let us try to again make this the book more available to as many devotees as possible. And all of us, if we can give some time to hear what Srila Prabhupada has instructed, that will be very helpful for us and for everyone else also. So we will close for now. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Samasta Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaur Pimanande.
Few announcements. First, we thank His Holiness Bhakti Rao Swami Maharaj by chanting one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
His Holiness Bhakti Rao Swami Maharaj ki Jai. We have kept some books there, so if anybody wants to get the books, Maharaj will sign personally. So that can be a great memento and great asset going forward in our